What's up, YouTube family? It is me, Sucha here, Primal Yogi. I actually recently just released a video on how I was using ancestral eating or animal-based primal eating and fasting to heal my skin, which has been a journey pretty much like all of my adolescence life into adulthood. And then ever since 2 years ago when I started going more animal based and as I dove into a full primal approach to eating, which includes fasting, it really showed so many differences in my healing, gut health, skin health, hair growth, nails, all of the things. I got a few questions specifically asking me what my fasting schedule and routine is like that helped me with this. And it needed a video dedicated to it because honestly, there's so much that encompasses fasting. So with fasting, I've experienced everything across the board. I used to have a not so good relationship with fasting where I was kind of abusing its benefits. And now I'm in a place where it's just super intuitive and it feels really good. Done everything from like intermittent fasting for just a few hours extra of not eating to multiple day fasts. There's a time and place for all of those fasts, and also based on your experience and your relationship to food and what you are eating, those all play a factor of how your fast is going to basically affect your body and take place in your healing journey, and most importantly, the relationship you're going to have to fasting, because fasting is truly a retreat for your body and your soul and your brain. But if you are feeling any kind of attachment to food, if you're having insane cravings, if you're feeling like fasting is just super terrifying and difficult for you and you're having resistance, then you might need a little bit of guidance before you just jump into maybe my fasting schedule or someone else's fasting schedule or a multiple day fast if that's something that's on your mind. So before I jump into my own fasting schedule, I want to touch on a few points. The first one is going to be why fasting? Like, why is this not just another diet and why it actually works? Why is it real? And the simple and short answer is survival of the fittest. If you look at how our ancestors hunted and gathered for food, food wasn't always available at our fingertips at grocery stores. You know, we could literally get food delivered to our doors now. It wasn't always like that. We had to actually work for our food. And more often than not, when we were working for our food, which meant either hunting and gathering our food, we were in a period of starvation. We didn't have any food in our systems, which actually kicked us into this amazing modality called ketosis. Keto gets a lot of hate these days, but it's actually a beautiful mechanism our bodies have for survival to survive without any food and specifically sugars and carbs coming in, which kicks our bodies into a place where we're in ketosis and we're producing ketones for energy and we're burning through our fat storages, which is why fasting and ketosis or the ketogenic diet gets a lot of praise for the weight loss benefits. Now, with survival of the fittest, it is just natural that our bodies got this time to rest, recover, and repair, and then we'd actually be kicked into this place of fat loss or diving into our fat storages and really getting all the benefits of deep fasting because we were actually exerting a lot of energy or maybe hunting while in a fasted state. Right now, most people are not fasting at all except for the times they're sleeping. So they're not really giving their bodies any break. In fact, we're in a time and place where the industries and just snack companies and just the food industry in general, they're going to want to encourage you to eat multiple times a day, eat all the time. And most of the times these foods are going to be addictive. Let's say it is something like simple sugar carbs. Those are going to be addictive. You're probably going to want to snack on it all the time during the day. And it's selling you more of a product. So because fasting is literally, you know, the voluntary abstinence from food, you're choosing not to partake in something that's going to spike up your dopamine and insulin levels all the time. There's not really any incentive for the industries to promote research on fasting because you're not selling anything. It's free to fast. So always take it back to our ancestors. How did our ancestors live? They ate real food and they fasted for periods of time. Now we actually have a lot of beautiful science to show that we don't necessarily have to be in this fasted state or in a state of ketosis all of the time to thrive. And we can actually work that in to our normal routines where we're still signaling a abundance to our bodies and brains with foods and even carbs, like in the forms of fruit and honey, and a lot of fat and protein to keep fueled, but we can still give our bodies and brains these times of rest and recovery and deep repair and healing through fasting, which naturally puts your body into a state of ketosis. So just to clarify, you don't necessarily have to eat the ketogenic diet to get the benefits of ketosis, because if you're fasting long enough, you're automatically dipping into a state of ketosis because you have no food coming in. Hence, there's no carbs or sugars coming in. The second point I want to touch on are the types of fasting. So there's so many different types of fasting, and honestly, I highly recommend trying out a bunch of them because then you'll intuitively know what feels good. It's always good to be a little bit disciplined at first, because before you can tap into the intuition of what feels good, you might need to try multiple things to even know what feels good and what doesn't feel good in the first place. Unfortunately, most people try something one day and they're like, it's not working for me, or it's working for me, and then they don't realize that it's just one day. So you need to be disciplined enough to give yourself time and patience with one practice, and then allow yourself to experiment and play around with other practices. So bringing it back to types of fasting, there's intermittent fasting, which is probably the most popular. Highly recommend 14 hours just for anybody to experience, and that includes a fast from coffee. So if you go to sleep, your last bite, try to wait like at least 14 hours until you even have your first sip of coffee. Now, the 16-8 or 18-6 fast are also the very popular ones that you'll hear people saying. And so 16-8 means fasting for 16 hours, eating within an 8-hour window. And if you want to take that further, you're fasting for 18 hours and eating within a 6-hour window frame. So that is basically a very sustainable schedule to keep throughout your day, because it's not a super long fast, but it is enough to give your body a sense of deep repair. My thoughts on this fast, because it is definitely a fast, but we have considered this to be a fast based on the typical American way of eating, or even just worldwide, which is eating multiple times a day, snacking throughout the day, drinking coffee and tea during the day. So I would actually normalize a 16-8 hour fast and have that kind of be your baseline, because that's just like a minimal amount of rest you'd want to give to your body, unless you're like an athlete or something extreme and you really need to replenish like crazy. And I do have those days where I'm doing like insane lifts, or I'm doing really long training sessions, or I'm doing like events, and you also burn a lot of calories through just brain power if it's a really high intense work day. However, make that be the norm, right? So you're working towards just having a really solid rest break every single day. And a lot of times people find that fasting, especially in the morning hours, and then eating towards the second half of the day feels really good for them, because you're gonna have a bunch of energy to focus in on your creative work at the start of the day before getting that kind of like slump after eating. However, I will say people notice a lot of benefits with fasting, and they'll notice that they don't always get the crash anymore, especially if you're bringing in the ancestral animal-based eating. Now, this leads me to talk about circadian fasting, which is another modality of fasting. And this is actually going to be the opposite, because you're trying to eat when the sun is highest in the day. So you might actually eat earlier, but you'll stop eating towards the late afternoon, early evening, and then start your fast at the evening earlier. This is what is most optimal to actually get into rhythm with better sleep, and you're just kind of matching the vibration of the sun. It puts you really in touch with nature. However, and this is for me too, I'll admit that this one is not as sustainable for most people, because a lot of us have dinner plans, dinner times like social, and sometimes people actually do sleep better if they have carbs at the end of the day, and maybe eating towards the end of the day gets you into that sleepy mode. But circadian fasting is so important and vital to experience and to get into rhythm at least a few times a month. And also in the practice of Ayurveda, which is a holistic Indian science, they recommend exactly this, to eat when the sun is highest in the day. So a lot of meditation centers, you'll actually eat a light breakfast, you'll eat a pretty big lunch, and that's kind of it for the day. So circadian fasting is great to play around with that. So now we go into 24-hour fast. So that's basically fasting for 24 hours. Some people actually consider this as OMAD, which is called 1 meal a day. This is something that I typically do sometimes once a week or once every 2 weeks. I used to do it really rigorously for, every week. I would do it on a Monday, and I'd actually have accountability partners or people that I worked with. So you feel a lot more inclined to stick with it and not tempted if the people around you are also doing this, or if you just are consumed with work. Ideally, you are just taking time to rest and rejuvenate. And the point is to actually sit with yourself and make peace with yourself rather than to distract yourself. But you can totally do it that way. It's a great way to transition. But the 24-hour fast or 1 meal a day is truly going to kick you into that, beginning stage of ketosis, and it's going to give your body true time to rest. So if you're looking for the deep healing, incorporating a few OMADs here and there are going to be really, really helpful. And then we segue into multiple day fasts. So like 48 hours, 36 hours, 72 hours, all the longer fasts. And definitely when you hit past the 2-day mark and you've basically gone to sleep twice without eating, your body just feels so empty, but you enter the state of euphoria and you just feel so limitless, and you feel like there's true cleaning and work being done inside. You not only are in a deeper state of ketosis now, but you are also entering a state of autophagy, which is your cells recycling process in your body. So basically, a lot of times, and this is where we talk about skin and just looking younger and regenerating, but our bodies naturally have these mechanisms to heal and to improve and to regenerate. This word is so important, regeneration. But if we constantly have food and energy coming in, we're not even able to tap into this healing process called autophagy, because our body thinks there's energy coming in. So it's like, oh, I have energy coming in. I don't need to regenerate. I don't need to recycle the cells because I have just enough energy to make sure my current damaged cells or older cells are just barely stringing along. And that's like the sustainability mindset, but we want to enter the regeneration mindset. So you need to basically completely starve yourself or bring yourself to that full signaling to your body that no new energy is coming in order to enter that state of autophagy or deep healing. So for people who are actually worried about like anti-aging or hair loss, or, if you're really working on your skin, doing these types of fasts are going to be really important. I'm actually currently dealing with a knee injury right now. And so that is something I'm going to be implementing in these next few days, because I really am in need of some deep healing and basically a deep repair and reset for my body. Your brain is also going to be doing some deep healing and repairing and reprogramming and actually creating a more plastic brain, which means that your brain is more inclined and has more of an ability to reprogram and just rewire neural networks to create new habits and just be more lit, be more energetic, be more sharp during the day. So many benefits there when you enter those deep states of fasting. Okay, so now that we touched on types of fasting and survival of the fittest, like why would you fast in the first place? And we also touched on the benefits of fasting and what it has to do with healing. I'm going to share with you what I personally do. I used to do a lot of just regular intermittent fasting, but for a while I had to actually use either an app or just really look at the time to actually remember that I wanted to fast and create that as a goal. Because of course, if your body is used to a certain way of eating, it needs a little bit of discipline and guidance. You can't just say like, I'm hungry at 9 a.m. Intuitively, my body's hungry. Of course, your body's hungry if you're always used to eating at 9 a.m. So your body's going to take a little bit of time. Your hormones are going to rebalance and kind of adapt to this new way of eating. That being said, I've been doing fasting for so long that I'm at a place where I intuitively fast about 18 hours a day. So typically eating between the hours of 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Sometimes 8 p.m. works for me if I'm doing like a later social hour dinner, or if I've just had a long day. It really does change day to day. And that's the beautiful thing about fasting, is you don't need to stick to the exact same schedule, although it can be really helpful as you're training your body and getting used to this practice. So that's where we always talk about the consistency, because consistency is what allows your body to get into this rhythm. So most days I'm going to be doing a intermittent fast, which is about an 18-hour fast, sometimes longer, sometimes a little bit shorter. Like I said, if I'm having like a really intense training session, working out big lifts in the morning, then I'll actually eat a little bit earlier, and I might actually be more hungry throughout the day. So I'll eat a little bit more. But I'm a really big fan of big meals and really nourishing meals. So what the eating window looks like within these 6 hours that I'm eating is usually 2 big meals and then a snack. I don't specifically try to snack, but if my body's feeling called for a snack, I'll do that. So definitely always breaking a fast with a really high protein meal. And this is why I like doing my workouts in the like later morning, and then I break my fast with my first big meal. So high in protein, pretty much all meat for me, some bone marrow, some organ meats if I feel like throwing that in, and then a little bit of honey, but definitely big on the protein, and that's actually going to keep you in that ketogenic state. Usually my snack is going to be pretty much all carbs, so definitely fruit. My favorite are dates, figs. I also like to do tropical fruit like papaya. I actually have a papaya that I'm going to be opening up soon. Bananas sometimes, berries are always great. Just anything that you could get that's seasonal. Oranges are in season right now, so citrus is great, super hydrating, and it just feels really good. I definitely feel something turn on in my brain. And especially for a woman, incorporating some carbs can be good. That being said, if we are looking at numbers, I don't track it all. The only thing I do track or try to hit in my numbers is a goal of protein, and I feel my fat and carbs kind of just lock into place. But with carbs, I would say I'm still having less than 100 grams of carbs, sometimes even 50 grams of carbs a day, but that can fluctuate. Sometimes if I'm around my period cycle, I'll have more, sometimes I'll have less. And then I'll always have a big nourishing dinner because I love to feel full and I just feel complete for the day. I never can feel complete with my day if I'm even feeling a little bit hungry. So I like to have a big full meal about like 2 to 3 hours, ideally 3 hours before I sleep. And that's also going to be pretty high in fat and protein, and then some carbs. If I'm still feeling like a little dessert, I don't like to actually refer to dessert as dessert, but if you're feeling like you want a little bit of glucose, a little bit of something sweet, then the honey or having some small fruit here and there will be really, really nice for you. So by only limiting my meals to 2 meals a day, first, I feel super satiated and just happy and full, like I'm feasting. So every meal, every bite is so worth it to me. I'm not filling in the blanks or just eating because I'm trying to fill in time during the day. I'm truly eating because my body wants the fuel, it needs the fuel, and I'm enjoying every bite. Not watching TV or anything. I'm literally just sitting, maybe listening to music, but pretty much in silence, or just observing my dog playing around while I'm eating and just appreciating every single bite. And because I'm feasting, I'm signaling abundance to my brain and my body. So even though I'm fasting, a lot of people think this is restrictive, but you're actually signaling major abundance to your body, your brain, and your soul by feasting on a big meal. So your body never feels like it's in lack because it knows it's getting this really complete, whole, nourished, huge meal. Also, by just having 2 meals, I'm giving big breaks even between my 2 meals, because one's at the start of my eating window, one's at the end, and I mentioned I sometimes have a snack. And so because I'm giving a big break, my body is able to fully digest. I get another big spurt of energy for the day, and then I eat, and my body can just like rest, rejuvenate, relax, and it's not constantly working on food throughout the entire day, because we've normalized the fact that, you think about food, which takes a lot of time, and then you cook food, which takes a lot of time, and then you eat the food, which takes time, and then you're processing the food, and it's not quite normal to just go into work right away, right after you eat. It's actually good to like respect that time frame, which is why I mentioned that a lot of people love fasting through the morning, because they get to really do their deep work. And I actually feel so sharp in the morning that most days by the midday, by my first meal of the day, I've already finished up a good chunk of my most important work for the day. So I'm kind of just like chilling a little bit more. And I know this looks different based on what your work entails, but you might feel that switching up and experimenting with a fasting schedule that works for you, you can kind of modify and adjust this so that you're able to be the most energetic at the time of day that you need to do the most amount of work. Last big note on this topic, regardless of what modality of fasting you're doing, eating animal-based or taking an ancestral approach to eating is going to make your relationship to fasting so much better. Why? Because the average person out there is eating a lot of food that isn't actually food. Cauliflower crust pizza and oatmeal and grains or legumes or nut butters and nut milks. These aren't actual real ancestral foods. It's the animal foods and taking a nose to tail approach, which means eating all parts of the animal, not just the meat, but even bone, bone marrow, bone broth, organ meats, skin, hide, all of the things. Eating that way is what's going to give your body the proper bioavailable fuel, and it's going to feel so satiating for you, so you're not going to have all these cravings. When you're having a bunch of processed foods and sugars and coffee all the time and different like Cokes and Pepsis, even if they're diet, and just foods that aren't naturally from the earth in an abundant form, then your body is going to be addictive and craving that, and you're actually signaling your body to not be in its natural rhythm. So fasting's not going to feel like a natural rhythm for you because you're going to be in a state of addiction or thinking about food all the time or feeling like fasting is restrictive because your body never feels at peace or fully satiated with what it's eating. So I just bring that up because ancestral eating is so important. So if you are fasting or trying to fast and you're feeling difficulty, then changing what you're eating is going to be super important. It's just going to make your fasting journey that much more blissful, and it's going to just boost all of the benefits. Like I mentioned, my healing, even for my skin, it was fasting and the combination of ancestral eating that really made the difference. However, no matter what you're eating, fasting is going to show huge benefits. It should be a thing where you're not feeling like it's so forceful to fast. It should feel just like a gift that you're giving to yourself, a retreat that you're giving to yourself. You should be able to get into maybe your spiritual work or listen to really good music or do your deep creative work while you're fasting because you feel so joyful and euphoric from the energy that you feel of abstaining from food, rather than feeling like, oh, I need food. When's the time? Oh, I have 2 hours until I can eat. Oh, maybe I should just sip on a black coffee to suppress my diet. Why would you want to suppress your diet when it's in our natural instinct to eat and to be satiated and feel full? So that's why giving yourself patience. Once you get into this rhythm, like I feel so satiated from my dinner last night that I feel so good into like 1 p.m., sometimes even 2 p.m. because I had such a nourishing dinner that my body is still able to fuel from throughout the day. Do you feel me? All right, that wraps up this video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or want me to dive into more of the topics in depth, please comment below, and also like and subscribe if you haven't already. I love sharing about this, and I can't wait for just more of you guys to hop on this, honestly, because the healing does not lie. And literally so many people have been like, yo, this has been life-changing. And once you experience and get a taste of this primal approach to living and thriving, you can't go back. So I hope that helped. I love you so much. Thank you.